What up, this is Patrick Hayes. In this video, I want to talk about 3 different paths that you can take on your journey of spiritual development. 3 different paths, 3 different directions that you can go. None of which I will say is wrong or right, but more a matter of preference. And I think this is a really compelling understanding of metaphysics and kind of like the purpose for human incarnation. Because this is something that you'll see different strains of it in different mystical traditions. But I think that by listening through to this whole video, it will give some inspiration for kind of an overall greater picture of the direction of where we may potentially be going and how to calibrate ourselves to be more in alignment with what we would really prefer to experience. So the way I like to describe it is we are all a seed of the infinite. We have a seed of the divine Godhead within us. And we are basically planted, this seed is planted into these incarnational experiences. It's planted into an astral body, an etheric body, and a physical body, and it's planted into this earth. And the seed will either take or it will not take. So it's like any planting venture. If you're going to grow a garden, some seeds will take and they will grow, and other seeds won't grow. So will we be a seed that grows in the garden of creation and then actually becomes eternal? Or will we be a seed that grows and then dissolves back into oneness? Or will we be a seed that doesn't take at all? So what is a seed that doesn't take? Well, a seed that doesn't take is a seed that does not realize its connection to the infinite oneness. So this would be a seed that as the seed was planted into this realm, it does not, the consciousness that starts to develop does not develop the capacity to recognize its own true nature. And in that failure to recognize its own true nature, it plays out different distorted expressions in this lower dimensional realm that are out of alignment with that true essence. And as these distorted expressions play out over long periods of time, this could be many lives, as it plays out throughout this long period of time, these distortions temporarily crystallize as like the different, astral body and etheric body of the particular being. But what happens is that these crystallizations are out of sync with that one eternal source, that spark of the Godhead that was the seed that we were created with, then it's not eternal by nature. Now, when I think of what eternal nature is, I think one good way of understanding it is that it's more creative than it is destructive. So think about it. Before there was any physical manifestation, before there was creation, the isness, the all that is, if it wasn't more creative than it was destructive, it never would have had the escape velocity to actually bring creation into creation. If it was more corrosive or more destructive than it was creative, it never would have birthed. So inherently, there is a more creative essence to our true nature than a destructive essence. And the way that I interpret that is that while there are destructive aspects of nature, there are destructive aspects of creation, that these destructive aspects are destructive only insofar as it gives the opportunity for more refined creation to be created. And those corrosive forces, while they are eternal in a sense, the things that they corrode are not eternal. And what they corrode are the things that are out of alignment with eternal nature. So, a being whose seed does not take, if their seed does not take, that means that what they've crystallized are not eternal forces, right? So they have not realized their eternal self. By realizing your eternal self and stabilizing those structures into your energy field, then you stabilize eternal structures, and then that stabilization or that structure will persist throughout eons. It will persist throughout time. So the less in alignment you are with your true creative nature, then the more quickly you will corrode away. So one path, you could say the path of darkness, the path of illusion, the path of perversion. These paths are corrosive paths. If you take a corrosive path, the seed won't take and you will dissolve into oblivion. And this is one path to take. Now, the second path to take, this is a path of union with the oneness. And this path is seen in many different mystical traditions that talk about unifying back with the one and dissolving back into oneness. Now, this path, the way I understand it, is that you realize your true nature while you're within this incarnation. You realize the essence of the oneness. And then you connect with that essence of the oneness and you say, dissolve this identity, this experience, this ego into nothing. You, in a sense, kind of almost step back from this life, this illusionary life, and then you connect with that oneness, and then you dissolve into that oneness after you die. And this is a beautiful path. It is like the divine reunion with your true nature. And you see a lot of practices surrounding this philosophy. The idea is to get off the incarnational cycle. The idea is to connect back with that isness, that oneness that we came from, and to dissolve our identity, our ego, to dissolve everything that has to do with this world and just connect back with that one. And that's definitely one way of going about it. And I think that that's quite beautiful. But then the third path is something that I'm even more excited about. And this third path is to take this oneness connection. So it's to make contact with that divine oneness that is pre-creation, that isness, that allness, that spark of the Godhead that we all came from. It's to connect with that oneness and then realize that oneness into the limitation that we're experiencing. So it's like to look into our identity, look into our ego, look into our physical body, look into this existence, and be simultaneously connected with the isness that is beyond that is beyond ego, that's beyond limitation, and to find the structure of that isness, of that oneness beyond limitation, as it is the essential building block of the limitation that we are experiencing. So it's to find the oneness, it's to find that infinite within our finite self, and then redefine our finite self as an infinite version of the finite. So this path is not about dissolving back into the oneness. This path is about creating an eternal individual self that paradoxically is connected to all and is absolutely one and is not individual, but is expressed as an individual. To me, connecting in with the oneness is like finding our roots. It's like going back to the source, right? And we can go back to the source for good, or we can stabilize that seed, find our true essence, and then realize source into an individualized expression. An individualized expression that has a lot of different connections or multidimensional natures to them, because that's the nature of existence, but also giving ourselves the opportunity to continue playing in the realms of limitation. Because here's the thing, we can dissolve back into oneness, and that's great and that's beautiful, but it's fun to experience yourself in limitation, right? That's the purpose of games in general. Think about like just any board game that you play or any game that you play in the physical world. What makes the game fun? What makes the game fun is the fact that you're putting limitations on what you can do, on what your options are. And so through that limitation, you're giving yourself an experience to learn more about yourself, to play more, to experience different variabilities of all of the different potential experiences that you can experience. While, it might be good to be able to connect in with the all at all times, it's really fun and interesting to be able to play out different limitations. And that's one of the major gifts that we're given, being able to be in this time-space matrix, to be able to be in the kind of incarnational experience that we experience. In fact, this is why I think the one creator actually created this as a possibility in the first place, because it gives so much more, in a sense, dynamic range to what can be done. It gives infinite possibilities to the kinds of experiences that we can experience. So, in order to take this Godhead spark and then make it an eternal being, we need to stabilize the essence of the eternal into our individualized expression. So it's recreating God within the confinement of the structures that we find ourselves within. And when we do that, that starts expanding the capacity for what we can do within these limitations. And then it gives us the opportunity to appreciate the limitations for the opportunities that it gives us. Limitation isn't bad. Ego isn't bad. Identity isn't bad. There can be an ego or an identity or a limitation that's out of sync with the eternal nature of what we are, but there can also be an expression of all of these things that is in sync with our eternal nature. And this is basically being omnidirectional, the ability to be extremely flexible and move in any direction and go in any direction. That doesn't mean that we don't experience linear experiences or we don't experience experiences of limitation. But what it means is that we have the most in alignment, connected, divine, one-like expression from within that limited experience, that we're actually creating the paradox of being oneness and being individual at the same time. So we're in this world, but we're not of this world. And this is what excites me as a person. It excites me to continue to express my uniqueness in a divine way, be connected to the oneness, be able to dissolve into the one and feel that, but then be able to express that beauty through individualization, through my own unique direction, through space-time, and my own unique geometry within the greater picture of the all. So we got 3 paths: being corroded, getting wiped from the system because we're so out of alignment, finding our connection back to the one and dissolving back into the one, or realizing the one into our individual experience. So thanks so much for tuning in. This is Patrick Hayes. Like, subscribe, share with your friends, and I will talk to you next time. One love.